Hi friends, welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Yvonne. You are on Ginger Chick Rehab, and on this channel I love to share the process of making over secondhand finds with you all. So in today's video I'm actually doing a couple chairs, and these chairs, a lot of times it's for resale what we do here on the channel, but these are actually a couple pieces that I am going to be sharing the process with you all, and I'm going to be keeping them for myself. Now, I'm not sure if these metal chairs are popular in your area. We have a lot around here, and they're always kind of pricey. And I just happened to be at an auction where the item I was buying, I had to take the chair. Nobody wanted the chair. So for $1, the chair came home with me. Then we were actually doing some spring cleaning, some revamping of where our inventory is, and this chair had been put off in the loft area that it was always on my to-do list. Y'all, look at that. From since 2000, that chair has been up there. So yes, I need to get this beauty done. And after posting my process of the upholstered chair, I got a lot of people wanting to see that chair, but we're going to do the easy flip of changing this green. I've been painted multiple times, a metal chair. We actually have two on our back patio that are black, so I'm going to try to get some of this chippy paint off. So I'm just using a wire brush for right now to see how much the loose paint I can get off. Know what happens when you start to reveal what's underneath? It's like, oh my gosh, there's so many colors, and I was really having a hard time trying to get it flat. Now, other than sandblasting and going all the way down into the metal, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I don't own a sandblaster. I'm just going to try to do my best to get it as smooth as I possibly can. So now I've switched over to the Orbital sander with 800 grit paper to try to see if I can get some more of this paint smoothed out. So it just looks like over time when somebody decided to paint it again, they just painted it. So it's got multiple layers of chippiness on it. So, you know, it's going to be for myself. Yeah, do I wish I had a sandblaster to go all the way down to the metal? Of course I do, but, you know, you work with what you have. I really just worked on it until my arm could not take any more sanding. And what do you think the original color? I can't even really tell. Maybe it was the coral color, or maybe that was the primer color. I'm not really sure, but I tried my best to get down, and you know, it feels nice and smooth to the touch, so we'll see how it paints up. But now I'm just cleaning it off with some Dawn dish soap, some hot water, and getting anything that's left, any residue or anything like that that's left on there off so my paint will stick. Now, last year we showed a video where we redid all our outdoor furniture, and we used this Rust-Oleum Farm Implements paint, and it has lasted beautifully. We don't take care of our furniture. In the winter, it just all sits out and it is all metal. So of course I was going to go for this to paint this chair up. So it didn't even fade or anything, you guys. It looks wonderful. So yeah, so just very gingerly, very slowly trying to get an even coat, because this really doesn't like to it's really a one coat coverage on this black. I noticed before if I tried to spray on it, because it has its own little top coat going on there, that it doesn't like multiple coats. So I'll just go nice and slow to get everything covered. And see, it looked, like I said, it looked like it was nice and smooth, but you can still see the texture. But it will look 100% better, okay, 90% better than what it was. Yes, on my other social medias, I posted the process of taking apart this chair, all the little stages of redoing this chair. Early on in my YouTube journey, I actually showed videos of reupholstering chairs like this, and I used to sell them, but Unfortunately, they take up a lot of space in my retail booth, and sometimes they sit, sometimes they go fast. So I don't do too much of them anymore, even though they are always a wonderful transformation. And I cannot believe on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok how many people are like, oh, I can't wait for you to do this chair because I have one similar. So now y'all, I'm just warning you right off the bat, I am self-taught. Everything I know about reupholstering, I just kind of tried to figure out what others were doing and make it up as I go. So, of course, the first thing you have to do is take it all apart. And as you see, this outer is not the original. Somebody had reupholstered it themselves. But I always like to take it all the way down. I don't like to put what I'm doing over the top of anything. We're going to start off fresh. Warned you, I take it all the way down, and this still had that straw filling. I don't want that. I want to start off with a clean slate. But I want to refinish or redo the wood on this. There's a lot of marks. It's got some age to it, which is pretty, but I want to give it a little bit more up-to-date look. And maybe there's a reason why I didn't do this for almost 3 years later, because I might have painted it. But now there's a little bit different of an idea. And my idea is to, yep, I'm going to sand it down to that natural wood that's underneath. And the person that reupholstered this before I got it actually used some Gorilla Glue instead of hot glue, or, you know, anyway, so some of those areas I need to work off the Gorilla Glue. It's that one that always swelled. Ugh. Anyway, so yes, hand sanding for most of it, but then I will go in with my power sander also. But it just has these beautiful details, and I want to give it a high-end, sophisticated look. When I was sanding it, I was not worried about getting into the crevices, kind of like adding a wax or a glaze to bring out those details. I was leaving the dark features in the details. So now, right now, all I'm doing is taking some Dawn dish soap, some hot water, and cleaning the whole chair. Then I needed to wait for the chair to completely dry, and I am going to go ahead and I'm going to stain it with the driftwood, which is my new favorite Minwax. Oh, stain. Oh my goodness, yeah. It just has this beautiful aged look. It's not too gray, it's not too orange, it's not too red. It's just a beautiful patina stain and gives it that nice old aged high-end look. And this wood is old and it was thirsty. So when it came to the wipe off, I didn't have a ton to wipe off. It soaked right in, but still go over with a dry cloth, getting of the excess stain off. Now I let my stain completely dry overnight, and the next morning I'm going in and sealing that stain in with a couple coats, letting them dry in between of a polycrylic. And as I said, this was really dry wood. So after my first coat, you can see how it has all those fibers that I didn't see from putting the stain on. I didn't feel anything, but once I started the polycrylic, you can see all those little particles, but don't ever stress about that. I do find that you let that completely dry. Don't try picking them off. let it completely dry, and then I'm just going to go ahead and take some steel wool after that first coat is dry and sand those little fuzzies off. Okay, so I'm pretty sure that most people watching didn't really care about that process of refinishing the chair. They wanted to know how to put the foam on. So we're getting to there, y'all. We're getting to there. So I just want to make sure that my chair is dust free because after my last coat, I still did a light little sanding to make sure that everything was nice and smooth with the fine grit steel wool. I'm sorry, one more step, just one more step. It was kind of an afterthought because I knew that this wood was so dry that I don't want it to be so dry that it cracks or anything. Even though it's made its life this far, I'm going to go ahead and put some Varathane natural wax. I want to do this before I get any fabric or any cushioning on there while I have the bare wood that I don't have to work around anything. So I'm just going to wipe the wax on and then wipe the excess off and let it sit for an hour or so before I start putting the chair together. And part of this chair, I'm going to give it a deconstructed look. So this is actually the webbing that you would use as a brace for reupholstering, but I actually want it to be the back of this chair's detail. So I just ordered it off Amazon. It's amazing what you can get off Amazon, y'all. And I'm just going to staple it in place. You want to attach this webbing pretty tight because this is the support for the cushion that you're going to put on. So I put 3 up and down, and now I'm going to go across and fill in some of the space, some of the wider space. So the weaving is going to give it that structure that's going to hold the back in place. For the very top and the very bottom, I actually folded the webbing over itself towards the inside to get that look of that it was all spaced evenly. So keeping with that deconstructed type of look, I'm not putting a dust cover on the bottom. I'm actually going to be using this piece of a coffee sack with no wording, anything like that. I had in my stash, and I'm just going to get that stapled onto the bottom above the springs, nice and tight. Now, after I got most of it stapled on, I waited to do my side to fold it down over by cutting around the arm. I don't want to completely cut it all the way down. I just want to give it a little bit of give that I can work it around. As you see, there's one part in the middle that I left. We're going to fold that into the inside, not onto the underneath, because you'll see that from underneath. So we're going to be hiding that. So now I can go ahead and pull it down and staple it around the arm of the chair. Probably the hardest part is remembering how many staples are going to go on top of each other. So yeah, that's why when you're taking it apart, there's a lot of staples because there's a lot of layers going on. So now as I'm working around the leg, I'm actually going to cut off some excess to not get a whole bunch of bunch up fabric, cut a little bit of that coffee sack off, and then staple that nice and tight. So next I'm going to take wide measurements of my chair. You always want excess that you have to cut off. If you notice, the front of the chair it has a curved rounded feature, so I'm actually going to cut that when I get the foam on the chair. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and cut the general dimensions. And the easiest way to cut upholstery foam, I order foam off of Amazon, and you can tell how long it's been since I've used it because the foam actually, it was brand new, y'all. It started to yellow. So yes, with a electric knife is the easiest way to cut that nice straight up and down of upholstery foam. It cuts just like butter. I do spend up with my upholstery foam. I want the most dense that there is. I don't want it to be so squished that you feel that bottom and you feel those springs by any means. So I spend up, and this foam will stay compact and not squished down too much over time. Now that I have my foam on, that's why I said you want the general size. I have to now work it around where I have to cut around some of the pieces and parts. So like the back part, the angle in the front, I'm just now filling in where I need that extra padding to be. Now I need something to hold my foam down. Now I haven't cut that front section off yet because I want to start making this a nice tight package, working this around. Now this actually, the piece of fabric I'm using, I really can't really tell you what it's called because actually the foam comes wrapped in it from Amazon, and I've always saved it. Because it works for what I'm doing. So for right now, as you see, I'm pulling it down nice and tight, and I'm getting that nice curved side by pulling it tight. So I'm going to go on both sides and on the back before cutting that front. And because the front is wider than the back, I have to add a little bit of foam. And as you see, the original had the same kind of thing. They just had these rolled piece of foam. So I'm actually adding in some of the cutoffs that I did to cover up that spot. So I'm going to hold it in place. I'm going to gingerly work down that fabric, and then I'm going to staple it in place. And once it's nice and tight, you won't have to worry about it moving. I do need to put some padding on the back of this, but if I put padding on it right now, you would see it through the holes of the webbing. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to be reupholstering this with a drop cloth. When I pick up a drop cloth from Amazon or Harbor Freight, I wash it, I bring it home. I don't do any softener, I just wash it so it's always ready to go. And I'm never worried about ironing because all the time that you're pulling on it and stapling it tight, it will work out the wrinkles. And sometimes the hardest part of reupholstering is being able to get your staple gun that you have in at those angles to be able to staple it around. So I made a little slit around the arm. This is just the backing, so then I'm just going to go ahead after I get it all stapled on and cut off the excess. I always like to reaffirm you guys that I am not a professional. I have watched people on other shows that I could never figure out what they were doing, so I kind of just made up as I go. So if this is running slow, it's because I really want you to be able to do this yourself, and I don't want you to leave frustrated from watching me. So my next step is to use some of this batting. Now this batting is filling, and then once you put it all together, it should not crush either. Like I said, I want this chair to be usable, and I don't want it to mush over time where you're going to feel the wood or the webbing. So yeah, so I filled that up heavily with that batting, and now I have to staple some more batting on top of that to keep it in place. This is why when you go to remove all those staples to reupholster a chair, there's so many staples in it. So you kind of work from one side to the other side, making sure that that stays nice and flowy. and the batting is in there. So now I have to put the next batting on the bottom. So you have lots of cushion going on here, but we are really getting this back together. So yes, I put that second piece of batting. That didn't have any of the filling. It just was the batting itself, but you can see where it is nice and cushioned. So now our last layer is the drop cloth fabric over the top of all of it. So I'm switching over to my air nailer, air stapler, because I've got a lot of staples over there. I don't have extremely fancy tools, y'all. You know, just a Ryobi staple gun, and Chris just happened to get this at an auction, I think. So yes, you just fold it under, you just staple it on there. You're gonna have some edging you're gonna be putting on there. But what I'm showing you right now is how to cover up that spot. So actually you just go in with an extra piece of fabric where that arm is, and then staple it from underneath nice and tight right up against the bottom of the arm. Then you're going to fold that fabric over and then staple it down the bottom. That will give you, you know, this is what I've always done, and it has worked out just fine. So it gives you that nice clean spot. All I can say is when you're cutting around those arms and there's legs, you just go little by little so you don't cut too much off. This was a little bit hard because I tried to feel for the roll of where it was, and I did okay, but then on the top I kind of got off a little bit. So I'm actually going to take the edging off of the drop cloth, and because it's actually wider than what my area, my banding is going to cover up. So I actually hot glued that in place first. So it's just going to have a little extra to hide that. Like I said, I'm not an expert. You just work with what you have. And so this is the edging that I picked up at Hobby Lobby. It hides all your staples. So for my top, I just had a little extra with that extra cording that came off of the drop cloth fabric. You use what you have, and I just made sure that I glued the good side of the edging towards the back, and then I can be able to cover up the bad side. So yeah, I told you I am not perfect. It is the perfectly imperfect of flipping secondhand finds, y'all, is all I have to say. And honestly, you guys, I have actually never done arms like this. So this, I'm definitely making it up as I go along because I know there was a lot of cushion on there. So I'm just rolling some of that padding in some of the batting, and I'm going to go ahead and staple that on. nice and tight, and then I'll just cut off the excess, get that stapled on, because especially on your arms, you don't want to feel the wood on your elbows by any means, so I wanted to make sure that was packed nice and tight. Y'all, I tried to simplify this as much as I possibly can. So I hope that I slowed it down. I hope you understood what I was saying or talking about, or I showed enough that gives you inspiration that you can tackle doing a chair yourself. So of course, this is the Ginger Chick way, that I have to add some green sack striping. Even though the drop cloth is beautiful, it just needs a little bit more. So of course, I have to make sure that my first line of tape is completely centered, and working it all the way down from the top to the seat all the way to the front of the seat, making sure that it is on there. So once I've got that all evened out, I can lay my other pieces of tape on either side of the original first piece and then remove that middle piece, because that is where my paint stripe will go. Taped off my little edges. I don't want to paint my banding. I don't want to paint my wood, so I put some extra tape there. Now I'm going to use Apple Barrel's multi-use paint, and why I use the Apple Barrel multi-use paint is once I iron it into the fabric, it is on there, it is nice and soft after it's ironed. I know that it works really well with fabrics. It's just always been my go-to. But in case I'm messy and I drop my paintbrush or anything, I just did a lot of upholstering there. I'm going to lay some towels down just to be safe, because you all know my hands are tired at this time, because yes, stapling and pulling staples out, it does wear in your hands. So I'm just using a sponge dabber to go ahead and coat that stripe. Now when we're coating it with the white, it's going to look like it's not really there. It's going to absorb into the fabric, but don't worry, once you take that tape off, it will be beautiful. And I didn't really feel like the sponge was getting it in there very well, so I did switch over to my stenciling brush, where I can do a little bit more swirling into the fabric. Every drop cloth fabric I've ever bought is always different than the next one, so you just never know how the fabric's going to pile, how the fabric's going to accept paint. It is just how it is. So yeah, so the first coat wasn't really, getting into those fibers, so that's why I switched over to the stencil brush. So you can definitely tell that the stencil brush is doing a little bit different, but you don't want a ton of paint on it, because you don't want to work it underneath that tape. I always dry my area before removing my masking tape. I don't want a chance that there's any wet paint that can get on any other place on my fabric. Like I said, I worked really hard to get this thing reupholstered. I don't want to mess it up with a paint glob. I'm going to be adding a few more stripes, but these next stripes are going to be thinner, so I just crisscrossed overlaid my masking tape, just regular Dollar Tree, regular size masking tape. I left about a 1/4 of an inch that it's overlapping, and then another 1/4 inch space, and that's going to be where I'm going to put my paint. Oh, you could just keep making as many stripes as your heart desires. So now this is where I said why I use the multi-use apple barrel, because it becomes one with the fabric. So I'm taking parchment paper, a no steam iron, and for about 30 seconds is all it's going to take to warm up that paint and make it bond with the fabric and make it nice and smooth, because right now it's just hard crusty paint, but once I heat it up, it becomes nice and soft in the fabric. Now we want to protect all that work we just put into this. So I'm going to do a good coating of Scotchgard to protect that fabric. And I will tell you guys, I have done a lot of benches, a lot of chairs, and always sealed them in just like a top coat with Scotchgard. And I've always been able to clean and spot clean with no problems. So what did you think? Yes, the simple, those metal chairs, when I got it for $1 at an auction. Yeah, you know, even if I was going to resell, I don't know. It's so hard to get down all those layer of paints unless you have one of those soda blasting, those sandblasting metal works. But at least getting most of that chippy paint off and then getting a good paint on that Farmall paint for outdoors is just wonderful. We did our outdoor furniture last year and it has just held up amazingly. And this is from our own stash. Now we have 3 of these chairs to go outside. Would I have liked it to be a smoother finish? Well, of course I would have, but at least I know that it should stay on there. And getting down, what was that original paint color? I'm still on the fence of which one of those layers was the original color of that chair. Boy, that chair had been painted a lot. And reupholstering, oh my goodness, that one, it kind of got tucked up in our little loft area of our storage. When we made our workshop, we attached our workshop to an old shed, which I absolutely loved because we have storage. But then once you also get storage, you know how that works. Things get pushed way into the back, and that got pushed way up onto the loft. And I'm like, you know what? Get that down. I am going to do it. I still have the vision for it. I still want to do it. And I know the deconstruction look is not everybody's vibe, but it's mine. I wanted to do something for myself, and I wanted to try this technique. Though I would like different ones sometimes to have a little bit more of the deconstruction looking. I absolutely loved it. The hardest part is always, you never know. You knew it had been done before, but you never know how many pieces and parts are underneath there. And a lot of times I like to get it all the way down to the bare bones if I can, because I just don't want any of that old stuff. I want it to get freshened up in a new life. And I absolutely love that worn wood look of it all. Oh my gosh, just absolutely gorgeous. So give me a quick comment down below. Do you do chairs? I know chairs are kind of iffy in a retail booth on the selling. I mean, at auctions and sales, they're always like, please take the chairs, but a lot of times nobody wants them. But so when you have a vision, it is nice to bring home a chair and be able to make over it all. So give me a quick comment. Do you do these kind of flips? Have you reupholstered? Do you reupholster it? Or are you like me? You're like, okay, 3 years later, this chair needs to get done. So thanks again for watching, guys. And as always, if you're part of our YouTube family, thank you so much. And if you're new and you're checking out this channel for the first time and you liked what you saw, not only do we do larger furniture items here on the channel, we do smalls, DIYs, crafts, and I take you and show you my weekly thrift haul of looking for finds to make over, to share the process with you all here on the channel. So thanks again for watching, guys, and we will see you next time, and you can see what we're up to. Bye!